This is the Board of Education regular business meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on April 26, 2007 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, and the clerks of the Borough of Watchung and the townships of Long Hill and Warren. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Binder? Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Here.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz? Mr. Pepe? Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Sun? Dr. Yaget?
Here.
Dr. Seelig?
Here. Okay. Pledge allegiance. The flag is over. This way.
We're all looking at the same one?
We're going to go this way. We're going this way. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good thing you said that because we were having a discussion as to which way the board is going to look.
I can't even see that flag.
I always look at that one, but they put the screen in.
They're hiding. Okay. With that, we can move on into the reports and presentations. Dr. Stromsland.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I must update you to say that the update on emergency preparedness that we had scheduled for this evening will need to be postponed to the next meeting due to unforeseen circumstances that have prevented Mr. Davies from being present this evening. Just by way of a short statement about it is that I just want you to know that we do have a crisis management plan in place with the yearly updates as they're required by both code and statute. These updates are discussed and compiled with the assistance of local, state, and county law enforcement officials. The plan is approved by the Department of Ed, and annually a memorandum of agreement is signed with the local law enforcement with Warren Township. There is periodic training for staff that's conducted, and more of an in-depth presentation on all of these elements will be provided to you at the next meeting. The way that we involve people in the preparation of this plan is we usually have Chief Leffert, who is our police chief here in Warren Township, our Homeland Security Infrastructure Coordinator, former retired Chief Bill Stahl, and our Director of Campus Security and Student Safety, Steve Davies. So that will be at the next meeting. The next thing to tell you about is some very, very good news. We have quite a few things to recognize with our staff and students. I'll put my fingers on it. By way of our coaches, we have a number of our coaches that have been named with Coach of the Year awards. Greg Leonow for boys soccer has been named Star Ledger Coach of the Year. Maria Backert for field hockey has both Courier News Coach of the Year and Star Ledger Somerset County Coach of the Year. In our winter season, Justin Kaufman for ice hockey was the Star Ledger Coach of the Year. Dan Smith in wrestling was District 12 Coach of the Year. And Jean McAteer from both the Courier News and Independent Press was named All Area Coach of the Year. Our student athletes, Jessica Zigarelli, who will be one of our Scholar Athletes presented an award this May, named to the Somerset County Women's Basketball Player of the Year by the Star Ledger. Brendan Ard, State Wrestling Champion in the 171-pound weight category. And of course, our ice hockey team, second place state champions, boys basketball, Somerset County champions, girls basketball, Skyland Conference champions, and second place Somerset County wrestling, Skyline Conference champions. So that's quite an impressive list just for the fall and winter. We are also putting in your packet for the weekend an impressive listing of acceptances that we're starting to see come in from the various colleges and university. You know, with spring comes the fat envelopes, sometimes skinny envelopes, but hopefully a fat envelope. And we're certainly proud to say that we've been getting some very, very impressive acceptances from our students. I also got an email from a parent regarding her feelings about how wonderful a job Coach Dieleman did with the freshman girls basketball team. And just to quote a little bit of it, as a coach of the freshman girls, he's a wonderful role model in many aspects. He showed wonderful sportsmanship that was a great example for the girls. He was extremely supportive and truly cared for the girls and their well-being. So it seems like very often, periodically, we will get these nice email updates from parents telling us great things about our coaches and our kids. The next 50th anniversary event that's coming up is on April 12th, which is the Hall of Fame, which will take place on that Saturday the 12th. Tickets are being sold for the Hall of Fame reception, which would be $25 each, and I certainly hope members of the board will be attending, besides the ones that are being honored. And a very big thank you to the PTO for their panorama show this past Friday. Terry McConnell did not disappoint as the MC of the program, and we received notice that they raised about $2,000 for their efforts for the school, which we are very, very grateful for. And I believe that will conclude my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few comments, but I'll hold off. There's an agenda topic item that I'll address with some comments. With that, I think we move on to Mr. Stiles, our business administrator.
I have nothing tonight for the first time in a while.
Okay.
Mr. President.
One thing.
We do have to come to closure on a meeting date for our reorganization meeting.
Okay.
Statutorily, we can't go beyond May 2nd. I'd prefer if we don't go to May 2nd. In fact, earlier the better for me, but I just don't like going to the end.
We talked about some possible dates being, I think, the 29th.
On the 30th?
29th
We can look
didn't
at-
work out.
Wednesday didn't work for me at all.
How about, is the 30th? I mean, can we just,
A very formal show.
we have two meetings that need to be scheduled. One is strictly an executive session, CSA final evaluation, and the other one is the reorganization board meeting. So those are the two that have to be scheduled.
The 30th is a negotiations meeting.
Reorg shouldn't take very long. We can work it in with whatever else you have to do. That is the 30th, is it not?
Yeah.
Well, there's two parts to the reorganization meeting. There's always the reorganization, and there's the regular meeting content
Right.
that we have in that, so that can run a while. I've never known them to be real short. How about the 30th?
Well, we have May 1st.
There is no 31st. We'll go to the
May 1st.
May 1st.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
Going once, going twice. May 1st is what we're going to try to shoot for.
We can have a Garland and Nathan.
Sorry, Tim, it's not going to give you much time, I know, but
Yeah, it's better than May 2nd, which is also a Friday, which would have been rough, too.
no, we're going to try to avoid the Fridays. All right, we'll shoot for May 1st.
What time will that be?
And we will then we may have to do the CSA material, which is strictly executive material, on the 29th. That may be the only day that we can do it. The 29th is a Monday, right?
No, I think
29th
it's
is a Wednesday.
It's a
Is
Wednesday.
it Tuesday?
It's a one.
There's a
Was it
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh, gee.
Well, we'll look to
It's
see
Tuesday.
28th,
What did I
28th.
emailed
28th
and
is
said
a
when
problem.
I couldn't come and I
Yeah, that
can't
was for
remember.
Jerry.
Now I had theater
He
tickets.
said,
Right.
he has a green book meeting.
The night you
We should
wanted
do it
it.
the week of the 14th.
Mhm.
I'll be ready.
May 1st is a Thursday.
We will
I may
explore.
have
I'm
to-
sorry if somebody can't be there. We're just going to, we are mandated. We must do this by the end of April, the final CSA review.
So we've decided May 1st, that's it. We
We're
cleared the
doing
decks.
we're doing the reorg meeting. We're going to shoot for the reorg meeting on May the 1st. We have two meetings that we have to have, and we're trying to put them in that last week, because the week before that is the spring break for the kids. Okay, and the parents that are going away and things like that. So we're trying to put it into that week. Unfortunately, May 2nd is the absolute deadline for the reorganization meeting.
Right.
April 30th is the absolute deadline for your CSA final evaluation.
Well, when you had just sent one out, and when you said you wouldn't do it during the school vacation, you had an alternate date the following week.
Right.
Do you remember what the alternate date
Those
was?
were the alternate dates, 28th, 29th. 28th is a little bit
You
for
gave one
Jared.
date.
29th,
The 29th,
Yeah.
which was
Tuesday.
Tuesday. That was the day I couldn't make it.
Right.
Okay, but leave it at May 1. That's okay if
Well,
everyone.
May
can make
1
it.
is a date for the reorg meeting. We may do the executive session on the 29th for the CSA evaluation. That may be the only day that we can do it, okay? We'll see. We'll keep working the calendar.
I'm going to learn to bring my calendar to these meetings.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No,
Since you had nothing else.
nothing further.
All right, let's move on to principal's comments.
Only two things to add to what Dr. Stromson indicated. We have our senior citizens prom this Friday in Gym 1-2, and not indicating at all that any of you are senior citizens, but if you'd like to join us, it's from 5 to 8. It's sponsored by the ASC. And then the other thing, I didn't even know we had a state championship in chess, but evidently we do. And our chess club kids won it.
No kidding.
I thought perhaps...
We'll get to that later. Yeah.
And of course, not to take anything away from Paul, but our robotics came in first place. But Paul will have more to say about that, I'm sure. But yeah, chess won the state championships.
Who's our chess champion?
There's a whole lot of them. There's like 5 or 6 evidently really good chess players. And evidently they have a chess tournament once a year. And our kids went and they won. It was really nice. We have one young lady who went overseas to participate in an international chess tournament. But evidently we have 4 others who are just as good. Maybe not just that, but very similar. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have our student representatives here. If they show up, we'll ask them for comments at that point in time. As Dr. Strong has mentioned, the update on emergency preparedness has been moved. We'll try for the next meeting. Then we can move on to committee reports. I have a list of committees, tell me if I'm wrong on this, that met this time. Personnel negotiations, co-curricular. Didn't we meet policy? No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
So that's, did anybody else meet?
Well, we had a curriculum committee meeting with, I thought, a presentation coming from Mario and...
Not tonight.
But that, we met.
You met
And
before.
you will have a presentation.
We did
Yeah.
prior to the last meeting.
You met prior to the last meeting, actually. Okay, with that, why don't we move on? Jerry's not here yet. Who else is on personnel? You're on personnel. Do you want to brief everybody on the personnel?
Well, we
Do you want to
can-
wait till Jerry gets here?
I think you ought to wait for Jerry.
All right, we'll stall on that. Negotiations, Peter?
Negotiations, we met to go over the counter proposal we got from the teachers at the last negotiating session, and we will be meeting with the teachers on Wednesday this week to continue the negotiation, and we are encouraged that the teachers have asked us to schedule, in addition to this, the meeting we've got with them on April 30th, we've now got 2 more meetings scheduled in May and 1 in June, because they are also anxious to see if we can't conclude the negotiations in time to be able to not have it adversely impact the new schedule for next year.
Anything else? Okay. Pete, co-curricular?
Co-curricular met. There were 3 topics that we discussed. Both Tom and I drew a blank on the third one. One of them was opt-out presentation and discussion that ensued, and Dr. Stromblin said that would be coming forward at a later date, so we'll leave it at that. The other area that we talked about, topic we talked about, was the crisis management situations and things like that, and as Dr. Stromblin said, there'll be a further report at a later date. Am I right, Doc?
Yep, perfect.
So that, and as I said, Tom and I both can't remember the third one, so we'll just leave it at 2.
Okay. Any other comments anybody that has from committee reports or anything like that? Why don't we hold off on the personnel? We'll do that. I presume Jerry will show up shortly. Why don't we move on to the teachers' presentation, the Model UN, item H, and then we'll come back and finish G, okay?
Thank you. Brock Mislin and Jamie Lott Jones are with us this evening to talk about a curriculum project they've been working on for the last year using backwards design, which is something that's been around for quite a while. Grant Wiggins, Jay McTighe, the researchers that developed this way of looking at curriculum. It seems very intuitive when you read it and think about it, but has not been done here until more recently. So thank you, and please go forward.
Thanks. Jamie and I are proud to present to you tonight, for just a few minutes, about an initiative that really came from the teachers who have worked very hard to bring clarity to a very, very challenging curriculum for grade 9 students, the World Cultures curriculum. Just a word about the overview of the curriculum that's very important to note is that essentially at Watchung Hills we have a 4-year social studies curriculum, which is very unique to New Jersey districts. Many of our students, over 75% of them, take modern European history as a full-year elective in the 10th grade. And because of that, we offer one of the most diverse grade 9 world cultures programs in the state. It is truly a non-Western program. With all the literature and talk about globalization these days, it's a shame that more districts can't do more and go beyond the standards to really talk about different cultures, different ways of life, and how they intersect with ours. And at Watchung Hills, we have a 2-year non-U.S. world history curriculum. And as a result, we have very, very ambitious teachers that want to include so much in the grade 9 program. And the last couple of years, we've been seeking clarity in that curriculum. What can we do to bring more clarity for this very challenging curriculum for very young emerging learners? And so that's where we got onto this idea of using the UN as an enduring understanding, which Jamie's going to talk for a few minutes about tonight, about how the teachers and students do this. But the way we got to this point, one of the ways is that we've really just asked ourselves, what are we really after? We have this really vibrant, rich curriculum map with all these understandings about religions, historical case studies, conflict, triumph over conflict, and it's so dense for grade 9 students. So we narrowed it down to a really important idea. A really important idea that has value beyond the classroom, at the heart of the discipline of learning about world cultures, that is often misunderstood or perhaps downplayed, and really in our heart of hearts as educators we believe it's essential. So we really are going for depth, long-term understanding and authentic demonstration to produce the desired results, acceptable evidence, and planned learning experiences and instruction. And this is the enduring understanding at the bottom of this slide here, that solutions to world problems are complex. They require creative thinking and the consideration of multiple points of view. That's the enduring understanding that we want our students to walk away from, but we wanted to put them in an authentic year-long project. And that is our 9th grade Model United Nations project, where students actually are involved in hands-on learning from one country's point of view, conducting research and presenting proposals that will ultimately end up in our plenary session of the General Assembly in early June to take place in both our Performing Arts Center and our other auditorium in the South Building, where students amongst all levels work together to try and solve 3 critical global problems in just 3 days. They have 3 days to do this, but the whole year, through writing, research, and collaboration, they're working on this. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Lott Jones, who really has been working very hard on bringing these specific pieces to fruition, along with Mary Sock and the rest of the World Cultures team. And she's going to take you through some of the experiences that the kids have to embrace this understanding.
I'm leaving you with that. Okay, it's too fancy for me. I really have to give credit to Mary, who came here about 7-8 years ago and said, this is something I really want to try, and let's go forward with it. And we were scoping it out for a number of years. How would we make this work into the World Cultures curriculum? It was a perfect fit, but where's the time to do it? And we tweaked it around, and last year was our kind of drive-through where we just did the simulation at the end of the year. And then we decided, what do we really want to do with this? And our answer was, I know most of you are parents and you understand this question. Constantly I hear from my 14-year-olds, why do I have to know this? Why do I have to know about these people and that part of it, you know, random India or China? I'm never going to go there. I don't need to ever know this. We want them to understand that in real life, when they're adults and they're in professions, they're going to be relating to people in various places of the world, whether it's through business deals or in the office or even picking up the New York Times and reading the paper. And so we wanted them to have a greater global understanding, especially now that they're growing up in this internet world, and it really is important to understand where things are coming from. So our objectives were to refine the final, like basically make the ultimate goals of the course be, why do I have to know this, and make it real to their life. To create dynamic, meaningful learning activities that would prep them for that simulation so that when they walked in, they knew their country and they acted out their country. To teach kids to apply the general skills that they learned all year in world cultures. And then to get them to critically analyze world issues from, this is the key point, from their country's perspective. We had a few kids able to do it at the end of last year very well. We had one student from Cuba come in, traditional clothing and the whole affected attitude, and he did a great job. But we wanted to get all the kids to that point so that they take on the position of Iran as Iran, not as a U.S. interpretation of Iran. And so that was our goal from the beginning, to introduce this concept and to make them informed, to make informed decisions under pressure. One of the things, and don't give it away, one of the things we do to the kids is we give them those 3 main topics, which they do discuss, but the very last day we make up a fake simulation of a crisis. And last year Sue Oba came in, emergency, emergency, and passed out this critical situation, and they had to act as their country in that moment on how they would handle the situation. So it really put them to the test of understanding. This is the rubric we used last year for assessing them over the 3 days. You can see that there's both behavioral points as well as qualitative things, where you could rank their question as to how good it was and how directed it was at achieving an end result. So last year, like I said, was our first year, and it went very well, and they had a simulation as well as a scrapbook where they had to do the research to be able to go into the simulation and form, but we thought we could do it even better. So we made some tweaks and incorporated it through the entire year. And again, we wanted that advanced debating. We wanted them to be able to scrutinize and understand information and react in an emergent situation. So this year we gave them their nation. Every teacher had them handed out by October 1st. And so all through the year, as we're studying every region of the world, one of their tasks is to reflect on issues in that region of the world as their UN country ambassador. And we've created opportunities for them to do this. Okay. So we started off the year with the purpose of the United Nations and gave them a whole foundation of what is it, when was it established, why was it established, where are the headquarters, what is the purpose. And then we began to get their feet wet by, most of the teachers set up blogs, and the students would be responding to questions on the blog as their UN country, which I personally absolutely love and will do it from now on, because it gave, I put my honors kids, J and K, all mixed in on different blogs. It gave the K kids that might have a processing delay the chance to look at the question and think about it and not be under the time constraints of, I got to answer this question. To go home and think and come up with really good responses. And I'll tell you, they really held their ground with some of the honor students in debates on issues of terrorism and global warming and immigration and things like that. We gave them actual UN resolutions that they had to read through and get through all that legal language and understand what it meant. And we did them together in pairs or as a class or individually, get them ready to write their own by the end of the year. And then we did mini simulations. At the end of the South Asia unit, we did a mini simulation in our classrooms. At the end of the East Asia unit, we did mini simulations so that the teachers could interrupt and say, that was good, here's a better way to do it. Don't forget to speak in the third person, whatever little clues we gave them to really affect the truth of how it's run in real life. And then we expanded the United Nations scrapbook to hit all kinds of interdisciplinary skills for various multiple intelligences as well. We added a midterm project, which I brought copies of some of the students' work so that you could see it, and we gave them 3 topic papers on the 3 main issues that they will be debating at the end of the year. So if you are excited about this as I am. You can look at some of the stuff I did. And I brought all levels so that you could see it really gave them the opportunity. The task is in there, but they had to invite ambassadors from around the world and pick safe discussion topics and ban discussion topics and highlight what kinds of food would be served so that everybody of every different culture and religion could eat, what kinds of entertainment would be provided, where it would be hosted and why. Things of that nature. Okay, that's the blog. This is some of the examples of some of the simulations we've done. This is the new scrapbook requirement. So you could see if you just scan it, it's everything from geographic to political. There's folktale, interpreting a traditional folktale. One of the things that kids really have enjoyed doing is to make a Facebook of a typical teenager from their nation so they really understand the culture of that nation for someone their own age. They have to write summaries of news articles from the last year on their nation in major New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post style journalism. They have to also know who are your allies and your enemies and who are you going to side with in that crisis situation at the end of the year. You want to click me? Again. So this was the midterm change, and I think I gave an example of it in the Xerox that Brock put together for us. That was the top of the assignment they were given, and the bottom piece, which didn't fit, and I didn't want to waste your time, basically gave them a list of 25 people, and then we let them choose additional. But it was everything from Bono to President Bush and Saddam Hussein and Ahmadinejad and the big cantankerous people were all invited. This was the rubric so that you could see the range of what we wanted to elicit from the kids from a beginning level to an exemplary level of both writing and content and things like that. This is the UN papers that they've had to write on so far. All of them are due by the end of the month to all of the World Cultures teachers. It's across the board. No matter who you have, this is the format. And like I said, the kids have loved the blogs. They exceed the number that I asked them to do. Typically it's 3 to 5, and most kids will do 7, 8 because God forbid they don't get the last word in on something. And it really lets the shy kids have a better chance, the kids that have different learning styles, an equal footing. It's been a really positive piece of learning that I've included, and I know Mary has, Pat, Kelly, Brian Ford, a lot of us have included this and found it to be very, very positive. Okay, they really like the mini unit we did on the UN's program this year, which is the Water for Life program. Some of them carried around water jugs for a day to see what it was like to have to go fetch water, and they did analysis of where water is critical and even found that it's an issue in America, which surprised them. And then the key piece of all of this is that the UN ambassador to this is Jay-Z, and so the music's running in the background of a lot of the videos he does. But one of the things that really got the kids' attention is he goes to Angola, and as he goes to visit a schoolhouse, all the kids are whipping their cell phones out to take pictures of him on their cell phones. And you see this moment on his face where he realizes they can have a cell phone tower, but they can't have a well, and how ridiculous is that, and where are world politics headed if this is what we allow. So that really made a good connection to the kids. It related to them on a lot of different levels. And if Mrs. Lott Jones just stood there and said it's a problem and people can't drink and they can't go to the bathroom, you know, sometimes Jay-Z gets more credit than I do. And then the mini simulations, the first day I thought I might have someone throw up because they were so nervous about it, but they actually really loved them and they asked to do more now. They've had a chance to practice. They feel like they know how to behave and the right words to use and the right demeanor to carry out, and they've had a chance to figure out who are my allies and how do I go to sit down to write a resolution before the big day at the end of the year when this is really going to count. Gave us a chance to coach them through a lot too. And then the midterm, we were very pleased for the most part. There was only a few kids that did not score at least a B on the midterm piece of this. A few of them, obviously, as in any case, just waited to the last minute and felt overwhelmed. But overall, the results were absolutely amazing, beyond what we as teachers expected them to be able to put together. Does anybody have any questions, or? Yeah.
How many students take advantage of this course?
It's pretty much every freshman right now, right? Every single freshman?
Mandatory course.
Mm-hmm. So I think, and the fact that it's every teacher doing this on every level, I think is really, and then the end of the year, they're all mixed. So you don't just have my first period or my classes, it's my classes with every other first period class, regardless of level.
Sounds like it's a lot of good learning, but it's not just book learning, it's things that will stay with them.
Yeah, real life.
Any other
Anything
comments, questions?
Just so I can add, I'm very, very proud of the work that the Social Studies History Department has done in this area. I think they've taken a very rich idea, as is the model that was proposed by Wiggins and McTighe, and they've made it real for the students in terms of having them really understand perspective. Perspective is a very important thing to have, especially when, you know, in U.S. we're very considered to be very U.S.-centric in many ways. So I think this was, you know, I was part of the all of that excitement that was in the new auditorium last year when all of this excitement was going on about the various countries, and I am looking forward to accompanying you to the UN one of the days. I forget which one, but I know I'm going.
May
to.
6th.
And I think it's just a phenomenal amount of work, and you deserve a good deal of recognition for it, and I'm very proud of you.
And thanks for letting us have tonight to give you an example of what's going on.
As the world has gotten smaller, the amount of learning has expanded so
Immensely.
incredibly, and the job you have to do is so much harder.
Yeah,
As
I was
we
just
used to
having
be.
a conversation with John Baer, and he said, you know, when I started my career, I felt like I could get through all of this so much easier, and now I feel like I'm struggling for breaths in between.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the educational content. I'm going to go back to two things that we skipped over. One is the student representative comments, and then also the report committee report on personnel. So why don't I open up to the students? You guys, I don't know which order you want to go in. Feel free.
So we got some pretty exciting stuff going on. Next week is Spirit Week, which is like the biggest week for the student government and everything, because we have like Spirit Days, and Monday's College Day, Tuesday's Western Day, Wednesday is Costume Day, Thursday is Color Day, and then Friday is Warrior Day. And Thursday we'll be having decoration of the hallways, where each class decorates a hallway depending on the color. They choose a theme, and then they'll decorate it.
And along with Spirit Week, we also have a volleyball tournament, which is free of charge. It's just to get the Spirit Week kick-started and get everyone involved. And we're trying to set up different activities for every day of Spirit Day, but I don't think we came to a conclusion on that yet.
Yeah, but the volleyball tournament's going to be a team, 3 teams from each grade are competing. And so the winner of the most Spirit points at the end of the week wins Spirit Week, and you'll get points if you win that tournament as such.
We also have the Mr. Heath benefit dinner and Battle of the Bands concert coming up on Wednesday. And pretty much that's just, we have a dinner for the whole community. Anyone's invited. And it's just $7 for the dinner and the concert. You can go to either or, it's still $7. So we encourage everyone to come for both. And we have bands from our school playing against each other, competing for the prizes. And that's at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
In the auditorium or the cafeteria. The dinner is at 5 to 6.
And the battles from 6 to 8.
Or 6 to 8. So,
So what day's the dinner on? The dinner's on what day?
Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay.
Next Wednesday. Yeah, 10%. Yeah, well, 10%, 90% of the proceeds from that dinner are going to Mr. Heath's family. The other 10%, we're going to establish a fund to help out families at Watchung Hills who have lost a parent, maybe a family member, over however long. It'll just be
Anything else this time?
That's it for now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, with that, let's move on to committee reports, personnel.
We certainly apologize for, I thought it was 7 o'clock, totally slipped my mind, it was 6:30, if I even knew that. But we did meet, the Personnel Committee did meet, and we were able to speak with the candidates that are on the agenda this evening, one for Director of Operations and one for the guidance. We had an opportunity to interview, ask questions, determine how well the candidates would fit with, from the board's perspective, at least the Personnel Committee's perspective. I think, and I'll give everybody on the committee a chance to also chime in, but very impressed with the quality and the caliber of the people that were brought forward. I think the committee is recommending, along with the administration, that these candidates be hired. A breadth of experience, and you've seen the resumes, hopefully they speak for themselves. So looking forward to an opportunity to have these two individuals contribute towards the district. There were some other items talked about, but that was the major focus of the Personnel Committee meeting. So I'd just like to ask, because I know Laura and Sandy were both at the meeting, if they also had any perspectives on these two individuals.
I found it amazing that these were two very difficult positions to find excellent candidates. And I think they just came out of nowhere at the same time, and we are so fortunate. And guidance is such a high-profile position in our community. And this woman, Catherine Angelastro, I have her curriculum vitae in front of me here. She just has such a wealth of experience. She has so much positive to bring to the school to really improve that department. On the other hand, we have the grounds person who has equal amount of experience in his field, completely unrelated field, but he too came to us, and I said, wow, he looks so good on paper. What do people who work with him have said? And I was assured that his reputation is as good as he looks on paper. He sounded very good in person too. Till you get married, you don't know the person you're living with in this job too. So hopefully we have two extremely competent people that have been brought forth.
I have positive things to say also about both candidates. Both interviews went incredibly well. We're fortunate to have these people come forward, and they both came offering solutions to things that are right here in front of us. The head of operations was talking about brightening up the hallways and different things he noticed in the building just by walking through on improvements that seemed like could be made. And the guidance director seems lovely and just really knowledgeable, and both roles I think will be fulfilled very positively. And both individuals, I have to say, seem strong, collaborative, and just great additions to the high school.
Questions? Are you done, Jerry?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, questions?
Thank you.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, and I don't know how much the Personnel Committee heard, but my question is, when are you going to share with the board what the new guidance director's plan is for where she's going to take our guidance department?
Well, I think now this can join in too. We talked about different strategies that she's used and how she's approached the problem in her district right now. The districts are very comparable. It's a slight difference because it's K through 12, but size and economic background. The plans, the way she brings the scheduling part of the process into play so that there's early scheduling, the way she almost individualizes each of the students' opportunities to reach out to different colleges. I mean, those were the kind of the questions that we talked about, and granted it was about a 30, 45-minute interview, but we circled around those very questions as to what it is that you would be able to do. And I think the things that we were hearing are, the way she meets with the parents and the types of plans she prepares, the way she reaches out to the various colleges. I mean, you could tell she's done this for quite a while and been very successful at it. And I agree, it was only a 30 or 40-minute interview, so you couldn't get the full depth of it. But those were concerns I know that the other committee members shared, and if you want to, talk about your perspectives on that question as to what she might do for college outreach. And
maybe I'll, if I may. We had her in for 2 rounds of interviews. First group that interviewed her were the senior administrators. The second group, we involved counselors and other administrators in that interview process. And the idea of the vision for the guidance department was indeed a critical element to that, both of those discussions, as well as with the personnel committee. One of the things that that was very impressive about her vision is that she is very careful about examining data on the part of what the schools are looking for, as well as data from the group of students that we are, for lack of a better word, marketing for schools that are for their consideration. She was able to put together like a prospectus, if you will, at the end of each year and at the beginning of each year, of what the various most competitive and highly competitive colleges were looking for, and looking at the body of students as they were coming up through the 4 years of high school to see where there were specific strengths among the students that were coming that could be guided toward various programs that matched those strengths. Also, a lot of good organization. We were very impressed with a lot of the documents that she uses to educate parents and students about the process and about the ideas that students need to grasp hold of in order to be considered for schools that are in those top, first, second, and third tiers. A real good understanding of the public Ivies, the private Ivies, the various tiers of colleges. She articulated a very excellent understanding of all of that, and we felt that she brought the package forward that seemed to address a lot of things that maybe we have not addressed in the past. That would be positive going forward.
I'll add to what Fran has stated. She had put together a very impressive parent handbook that was pretty comprehensive that the parents would get. It looked like she was organizing more visits of colleges than we're accustomed to.
We had something like 140 come to the school, to her high school, which is far more than we've ever had.
And another thing she talked about specifically was resume writing, and pretty much from the get-go, not waiting till senior year to get started on something like that, with each student, so that they have their resume going forward right from the beginning.
I guess my other question is, if she's starting in July,
July 1.
Do you anticipate coming to us by roughly September or so with her to outline what her plan is for what she's going to accomplish in her first year?
I think that would be reasonable to assume, certainly.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to find out, is there any chance that she could spend some time before July 1st to get to know the staff and what's going on here, to actually see it in operation? Because I think it's important, that she doesn't wait till September to really get the planning going. Is there any chance that she can do that with her current job?
We can discuss that with her.
I just think it would be a good idea to start the transition, because we're paying someone now as a kind of an interim. Maybe we could cut that back a little bit and even offer her some kind of a small stipend to come in and start learning the stuff.
I'm tried to speak about having her come earlier than July 1st date, but she was very committed to finishing out what she needed to do at the school. So maybe you can ask, if it's a
not to say that she wouldn't,
for other days if she takes a day off,
or not to say that she wouldn't just come up on her own.
Yeah.
Also, we have the interim person available 2 or 3 days a week, so it isn't that we have that person full time. So I think the cost would not be an issue.
Okay. I think just the other thing is the feeling from the committee is, because we've spoken about this in numerous committee meetings about who's out there, what is it you've done, what can we do more, how much can we scrub, and maybe not the full board appreciates it, but at every meeting we talk about how far out we can go, what ideas we have to try to find people. It's not a lot of people out there. And to find somebody of this caliber, I think we felt that it was truly just fortunate that the restructuring in her own district had left her without a position, so that we were able to then take advantage of that and hire her.
One final question. Is this person going to be hands-on and take responsibility for the actual scheduling?
Yes, she will be working this first summer with our person to become familiarized with it, but she is, as I said, a big schedule and data person, so I think it will be something that she will want to have her arms around very quickly.
Is she familiar with the tool that we use for scheduling?
No, she uses SASE in her current district, so we're all learning the new program, so she will be too.
Well, we have used SASE, right? That's what we have been using.
We have been using, yes, and we're
And now
moving
we're
to
migrating to
Genesis.
something else, so she's going to have to learn it at the same time.
Just that we do.
Okay. Any other questions? That we can move on. I should give you at least a chance to respond. And with that, we can move on to first opportunity for public comment. If you have a comment, you can come forward. You can address agenda topics at this time. If you choose and you want to address a non-agenda topic, you can do it at the end of the meeting. Please give us your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Okay. Seeing nobody coming forward, we'll move on to, we'll close the first opportunity for public comment and move on to board discussion. We have a number of policies that are coming back to you, which we've had before. I'll just brief you. The one that's new, that's for first reading, is employment of teaching staff members. This is essentially a policy that's comparable to one that we voted on last year, which had to do with staff, and it has to do with the nepotism, putting in place nepotism clauses, which we're required to have in place now by statute. The policies that are in for second reading, which we've had, are the 3281, inappropriate staff conduct, and then 1510, the rights of persons with handicaps or disabilities. The 1523 comprehensive equity plan got on there by accident, so we're going to remove that from the agenda at this time. And then 1400, which is job descriptions. Those three you've had a chance to see. So
This one,
Sorry, which one?
1523.
1523 is being pulled.
We didn't finish that one.
We haven't finished that one yet, so we're going to probably spend some time tomorrow night working on it. And that's, I didn't have any other comments really on policy.
You have questions? You want questions now on the policies, or you want to wait till they're moved?
You can ask questions now if you want to.
I just was curious about the nepotism policy. I mean, I always understood it, a board member relative, but this says or full-time employee.
Yeah.
So if another teacher is employed here, you can't actually hire.
You can't hire their.
I mean, I can understand administration, I can understand, board, but it includes even a relative of a teacher.
Right. It's really strict. It's very strict.
Why? I didn't understand that, but.
I believe it's by statute.
And it avoids issues. It avoids problems.
What if they become related after they both are hired?
You can't do much
We
about
can't have
that.
two single teachers get married. We have had it
Well,
happen. And they
I think there's clauses for
No,
that.
I think the policy, the way it's written, if I remember,
If they become,
you can't hire, but if the situation exists, then it's
they would not be.
it's
It
not
says
in
will
the
not employ
policy.
but can reemploy. I know that.
What is
so-
that? Well, that's where I'm confused. But may reemploy, and then it goes on child civil. What does that mean when it says the board will not employ but may reemploy? And I try to
In
understand.
other words, if there already is that relationship, if there's a
So you
person.
renew the
Yes.
employment. It's to
That
renew the
predates
employment.
this policy.
Because we're on an annual contract.
This is the first reading only, but can we check that really includes like relatives of teaching staff?
We will verify that this is what is required by
Someone wants to
statute.
be a substitute teacher,
Right.
they can't even do that?
You cannot. That's right.
That's right.
We will verify that that's as
Okay.
is written in the statute, okay? And if it is, we'll bring it back to you substantively the
Is that
same.
just for teacher or any employee?
Any employee?
It says any employee.
Yeah, because we have a separate policy on that. That's already been board approved.
We adopted it already this summer. It was just an oversight that this one was not included.
Explain further. I'm still struggling on that one sentence. If the board isn't going to employ so far, child, sibling, spouse, or whatever, but they may reemploy, well, how can you reemploy someone that you're not permitted to employ in the first place? I know there's an explanation, but it's
A
not clear
person
to
that's
me.
already on staff that may be a relative who was already employed prior to the enactment of the policy.
So
It should be, it should really say, you can't newly employ somebody, but you can reemploy somebody that is already on staff that might before this. So
That
it's
they
kind of
fall
a,
into this category.
yeah, it's a grandfathering, or grandmothering
Right.
clause, whichever one you choose.
What employees,
Pardon?
Okay.
What employees do we reemploy from year to year? Does it that mean
Well,
that if you're a teacher, you actually
Time
renew
of
the
staff, you
contract?
basically
So
reemploy.
Reemploy them?
Right, by contract. So the reorganization meeting takes care of it. Bernie?
I think the word reemploy may be incorrect, and maybe you want renew, because what happens if someone leaves for 2 years and then reapplies and the status has changed? Would that be a reemploy or a renew?
That would be a new employment.
Well, actually, 3 paragraphs above that in this same policy, that's discussed as a reemployment.
Reemployment, okay. So you would be allowed then to reemploy, rather than, it's not a new employment, but a reemployment.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm telling you
no,
what
it
the
would be a
policy
new-
says.
we will look at the statute on that, but take a look at the policy. If you have questions, bring them forward, and next time we bring it up, you can give us all the feedback, and we can bring it back for first read again, if there's a lot of concerns about it.
I would love to see that cleared up, because I read it through 3 times, and I said, I know that they must mean something, but I'll be doggone if I can figure out what they mean by that sentence.
Okay. Let me just, we're going to take a look at this, because we got too many questions on what this language means right now to really make it, to kind of
Just
get
under
it
the
forward.
nepotism.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't really find it.
We should look at both policies then.
We will take we'll take a look at both policies, because they're both
They're identical.
come from the same language, and so it's probably healthy to take a look at both of them and see if we can't clean up the language.
That was for support staff.
I mean, obviously, we got a lot of questions on it. I suspect if there's questions, there's going to be a lot more outside of this group. Any other questions on?
People pay for their own criminal investigation?
Yeah.
What kind of numbers does that fall in?
It's like 75.
Okay. It's not a big number.
And it's always going up.
It never goes, nothing goes down.
I guess it'll double now that we have to
Except
close
your
the
stock.
budget gap. The state budget gap, 150, it'll be.
Depends on how big a background you have.
Okay, so we'll take a look at the policy 3125 very carefully with regard to that language. My guess is, we'll adopt it as first reading tonight. My guess is that what's going to happen is, as we go through it, we're going to make a lot of changes to it. We'll just pull it, we'll never bring it forward for second read, we'll simply re-adopt, bring it back in for first reading at some future time, okay? So it doesn't change the motion, it'll get us to the point where we can make revisions to it. Any other comments on policies at this time? So the inappropriate staff conduct is for second reading, the rights of persons with handicaps is for second reading. And then 1523 is pulled. And then lastly, the job description policy, which you'll notice was modified to include bullet points in the second sentence there to help try to clarify. All right. No other questions on policies. Let's move on to action items, if we may. We have action items A1 through A.
I move A8 onto the agenda if it's not been done yet.
We're going to do it all at one time. A1 through A7 with an 8-8, which is a walk-in resolution. If we can move on, does anybody have any of those that they want to have pulled and moved and voted on separately, of the A1 through A8?
Let's just pull A1.
We'll pull A1. Anybody have any others, A2 through A8, that they want to have pulled and voted on separately? All right, can I get a motion on A2 through
I'll move
A8?
A2 through A8.
Second.
Okay. I did have, it's been moved to second. I wanted to speak a little bit about A8. I didn't want to do it during my comments because I wanted to tie it closely to the motion. I had an opportunity to go, at the request of actually one of the parents, Mrs. Tyler, to go to the Javits Center on Sunday and to watch the robotics competition. I'd never been to one before, and for those of you who know my background, you know I'm actually a closet geek at heart, but and I love the technology. This is some of the most amazing technology accomplishments I've seen. Just the robotics the computer technology, the visioning that they use, some of the sophisticated tools that they use for controlling these robotic systems, the controllers that they use. It's pretty amazing things. In addition to that, you have to appreciate, on January the 2nd, they get a book that's about an inch to an inch and a half feet thick, which is all the rules and regulations associated with this year's competition. It changes from year to year. So it's never the same thing. So they don't really know what the objective is for these robots is in the first day until they hit January the 2nd. They have 45 days to put together the robotic system. So this is a very intense activity for these students of ours that for 45 days spend an incredible amount of time working late in the evenings to put together the control languages, the logic, the mechanics of this, the machining of the equipment and things like that in order to make these robots work. And they're pretty amazing. I mean, and at this conference, you know, I'm thinking you're going to go see a couple people. There are 65 teams, and each team is like 5 or 6 people that are on the floor. And then behind them, there may be another 10 kids that have actually helped in the participation of this. And they're very enthusiastic. So I just was, it was really, unfortunately I had to leave. I got to stay to the point where we had won the preliminaries, and then we had to move on to the finals, and at which time then they pick an alliance team. Our team then gets to pick 2 other teams that then work with them. And I had to leave at that time, unfortunately, for another commitment. But there's a lot of, it's a very educational environment for these young children. Because it puts them into the very pressure cooker environment that you see in industry all the time, where you have 3 months to complete a project. And sometimes at the end of that project, you walk away from it and you say, wow, you know, I hope I never have to work with those people again. Sometimes you walk away from it and you just kind of sit back and you say, wow, look at the team that we had here and what they were able to accomplish in such a short period of time. That's what these kids do year after year on this, in this robotics team. So it's a very kind of real life kind of thing. The other thing I really liked about it is our students do the work. They're guided by a couple professional engineers from our sponsoring, one of our sponsors, and I did jigs, can't even pronounce it. And they help guide them, but you know, they go through the whole thing of design, arguments, and you know, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And the kids want to do A through Z, and the engineers are probably saying, you know, let's try to get through A through D first, okay? See if we can get the simple things done. And so they go through then the whole concepts of design, implementation, prototyping, trial and error. So it's just really a very powerful educational opportunity. So, you know, if you don't have a chance to go to these things, I would encourage you to you know, this year may be too late, but unless you want to go down to Atlanta to see them in the finals, because they won the regionals. This is the New York regionals. They won that, and now they move on to Atlanta for the nationals. That's a very significant accomplishment and very noteworthy for this school. So that's why I just wanted to hold my comments on that. I was really excited about it. You know, look at all that technology. How could you not go wrong?
Paul, if I could just add, I didn't see this year's team, but I have seen some of our robotics teams in the past, and it's not only the kids and the engineers, but Tom DeGancy will tell you the names of our teachers who work with the kids as well, and they put in tremendously long hours late into the night here at the school working with these kids in this intense time period, and their dedication is what allows our kids to succeed. So I'd ask Tom just to give us Mike's name and the others again.
Thank you very much. Mike Kutch, Andy Furlong, who's retired but loves the program so much that he comes back to do this. William Mulligan, who took over for Andy, and a graduate about 5 years ago who was one of our robotics person. He's an engineer, and he came back to work with our kids before going overseas in the armed forces, is Jimmy Jockey. So we had 5 adults. But as Dr. Seelig indicated, it really is a student-oriented project with aid and advice from the engineers.
Yeah, it's truly, and I hadn't mentioned the faculty, but there was so much that was going on. I just did so many things that were happening on the day. But Mike took me around and took me into what they call the pit, which is where they have a big area where they actually have the competition. They have the pit where they have all the, you've got sophisticated technology. It takes a lot of love and care to keep it going so that it's a place where they can do the mechanical work on it in between the competitions. So he took me back there, you have to wear safety glasses. They're very strict about safety glasses. Don't try to sneak. And they showed, and they just have, there's 65 teams back there, all with people working on the robots, and they actually share, amongst the various teams, they share equipment and things like that, because it's, while it's a competition, you never quite sure who you might be paired with from one time to the next. And so the very person that you might be competing against in this round, you might actually be paired with as a partner, part of your alliance in the next one. So there's a lot of teamwork that goes on throughout the entire session. So truly the faculty has done as Peter had mentioned, a great job. And I often wondered, I'd come up here on Saturdays when I'm walking and see people, they'd be walking between the buildings carrying these mechanical pieces. I often wondered what they were doing. Now I know. It was always in January on cold days. So with that, I just wanted to just put my 2 cents in on supportive measures.
If I could add, the Anna Digic's company really stepped up and provided $5,000 to us, so that there will be no cost to the board for the students to participate in the competition in Atlanta by donating $5,000 for the entry fee. So that was very much appreciated.
And Fran, that's in addition to other financial support
yes,
they've provided throughout.
That's right.
And plus, they spend their time as the professional engineers who help the students and guide them some of the initial work. So it's very appreciated.
Do we send them a letter?
Oh, yes, I will send them a
very
letter.
long letter.
We'll deliver it personally.
I will send them a letter.
A picture or some kind of a picture too, if they have, from the winning thing, so maybe they could use it
for advertising.
They were there also. They actually are there in attendance during the session. There's video. By the way, there's a website on this. I want to say
we got an email today.
You got an email that you can click on the
I'll
top.
send it around.
RoboWarrior.
I can send them.
We'll send it out.
I'll send them to the board.
Yeah, I think it's RoboWarrior 41
Put it on the main website too.
And they have video clips on there in case you want to see the actual competition. So you can see these robots.
It's pretty amazing.
Some pretty funny. I mean, like the one that got hung up on the
45
gantry.
degree angle, yeah.
Had this swinging back and forth. Not quite the design intent. So we can move on. I'm sorry.
It's real.
It's real
It's
competition.
Well, let me just, I think you suggested putting it on our website too, didn't you? I think we should have some things on our own website that gives the company some publicity and the teachers and the students.
We can do that.
And not just direct them someplace else, but something on our website
We
itself.
can do that.
Okay, good suggestion.
I mean, maybe there's like an accomplishments page that we could create. Because we've heard about a lot of accomplishments, maybe just in one place, something for all those
A lot of this is
accomplishments.
on there already, but we can add that.
Yeah.
With that, are there any other comments on A2 through A8? Okay, can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Spector?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pappy?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Could I now move
Can we get-
A1?
I'll second it.
Okay, A1 have been moved and seconded. Any comments?
Yeah, the reason I did this separately, I just didn't know whether or not we should have an add-on to the language at the end saying, provided we don't otherwise use a day between now and then.
It's happened in April.
And since I made
happened
the
in,
motion, I would
actually in
propose
June.
that amendment to that.
Does anybody,
Motion?
the
I
person
have
who,
no disagreement with
the
that.
person who moved and said, Sandy, do you have any problem with that? Okay, I think it's a good
I'll have a big
add.
problem if it is a snowstorm.
Okay, we have a motion on A1 and A2. I'm sorry, A1, I apologize. It includes now language at the end. What was your wording on that?
Provided that we don't have to use an emergency day off before that date.
So, Tim, you can add those words in there?
Yeah, something like that.
Something-
Yeah, anything that works for
Basically,
you.
so if something doesn't happen, we can, okay.
We have 2 days left, so.
Can I, do I need a roll call vote on A1?
No.
I think I just need a voice vote. Can I get, all those in favor say aye for A1?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Let's move on to the Cs. Can I get does anybody have any of the Cs, C1 through C6, that they want to have pulled and voted on separately? Pete, which one do you want to pull?
5 and 6.
5 and 6, okay. Any of the C1 through C4 that people want to have pulled and voted on separately? Can I get a motion on C1 through C4?
I'll move C1 through C4.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have C1, C4 moved and second. Anybody have any questions on C1 through C, comments?
Just a question. You've now gotten me accustomed to seeing paired applications for emergent hiring and paired appointments, which is what we have in C3 and C4. So I'm totally confused as why we don't have a application for emergent hiring for C2. It was already done at a prior meeting?
That's what I want to think.
Well,
I'm not sure.
The question was, these were the two people we pulled from last time.
Right, you
because
didn't have
the
the
resumes.
second page.
Now we have the complete resumes.
Yes.
So don't we have to have an application?
I don't know whether we pulled the emergent one or not, though, that's the question. Couldn't hurt to put it on in case we needed.
It's probably a good idea.
So, can we just add that to C3?
C3, we
Yeah,
can
add
add,
it to C3.
We can add the emergent hiring,
If needed.
who moved and who seconded.
Jerry
Jerry,
moved and
Sandy.
Sandy
do you
seconded.
object to that addition?
No.
All right, we're going to add to C3 then, the second name of Nicholas Houghton,
If needed.
if needed. All right.
I also have a question on C1.
Go.
Is that a Schedule D stipend position?
Yeah, that was approved about a year ago
Okay.
as part of Schedule D.
I'll talk to you later about whether it's on the list or already.
Okay. I believe it is,
That's-
but we'll check.
Okay, that's my only question.
All right. Can I get a roll call vote on C1 through C4? And remember, C3 revised include Nicholas Houghton if required.
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Fallon?
Yes.
Balzerano?
Yep.
Beckner?
Yes.
Mendel?
Yes.
Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seal?
Yes.
I'd like to move C5.
Okay, I
I'll
have
second that
C5.
one, too.
C5 has been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or comments on C5?
Do I make them now, or do I make it as I vote?
This is the guidance.
Pardon?
Should
Do I
make
make
it
my comments now, or when I vote?
No, do them now.
Okay.
When we vote, we vote. We
Okay.
make comments and questions before we vote. Okay?
Well, I plan to abstain and vote, not vote on this matter. It's a very important issue, and I don't dispute that. In fact, because it's so important, and as Dr. Stromson pointed out, there were 4 groups, I believe, that interviewed this person, or 3 groups. The first group was senior administration. The second group was the 5 board members or personnel committee. And then there was a third group of teachers, counselors, and whomever.
Right. And there was one other group that I neglected to mention, which was the in-house current staff, the
Okay, so
athletic
there's
director.
4 groups. So
Oh, I'm
this
sorry,
position-
I'm on C6. I'm sorry. No, you're correct.
Three
Those are
groups.
the 3 groups, yes.
Okay. Well, so there are 3 groups that were invited to look at, and talk with, and get to know this person. And I don't disagree with any of that. But as a member of the 4th group,
The leftover group.
the 4th group, and that's the remaining board members, we're just asked to vote blindly on such an important issue. And with that, I feel that, and I can see Michelle and Ellen smiling if they ever view this tape, that I would be voting blindly here on such an important issue. So if I was dismissed as unimportant, I can't intelligently vote, so therefore I will not vote yes or no on this issue.
Okay.
I
Any other
believe my
comments at this?
soapbox spiel.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments?
I kind of feel the same way. Many of the other positions, we've talked to the person at the beginning of the meeting, so something seems a little out of the ordinary on this, Pete.
We use the committee structure as it's intended for its use.
You could have been
You
there.
don't,
Well, Papa?
You're on the committee.
in one
No,
regard,
Actually, Jerry, we could, because I'm part of
the,
it, but the rest of the board.
to what Dr. Stromson said, the committees are the ones that have interviewed it, and while you may not have firsthand experience with it, like in many situations, and when you're managing something, you base your judgment on your judgment of others, and that provides you then with the confidence of going forward. So you've heard the feedback and comments that they've made, and then you can judge based on that and your understanding of those individuals. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other, I'm just saying that's the process under which most of this is done. It's based on the confidence that you have in the recommendations of the people
But there are
that you've
also-
put in those positions to help you.
But there are also a number of positions where the full board is involved in some way, shape, or form in interviewing candidates, whether it's this position or any select few positions.
Right.
Therefore, if this was such an important, and it is, issue in hiring, then I think we should have all had an opportunity or been made aware of the opportunity to visit and sit in as a member of any one of the other interview groups other than with the board members.
Okay.
That invitation was never extended. Point finished.
Okay. Any other questions?
The
Sandy?
only thing, Pete, that I recall is we always interviewed for superintendent and we always interviewed for business administrator. But all the supervisors of the departments, whether it would be English or social studies or math, then at that point, it was done personnel, including head of special ed when Gloria left and we hired. So the only two historically that we have done, I'm always the historian here, are those two, superintendent and to interview and BA.
And I don't remember it being expanded to 3 and other groups beyond that. This was. That's my point.
No, this was the Personnel Committee.
But with other groups,
In staff
other
members.
select groups,
Staff
formed
members.
groups. We, as the member of the 4th group, which is at half of the board, we were not involved or invited to be involved in any way, shape, or form other than to vote blindly. That's my point.
Pete?
And Sandy, I'm going to disagree with you this time as a historian, because Will Ross did come to us and was
Okay.
introduced to us
Before
and
we
presented to
voted.
us before we were asked to vote on him. And so
Prior to the meeting,
I have the question now. I guess I'm not sure what rule or what policy we're under, and is this supposed to signal a change that when we're hiring supervisors, we're not going to bring them to the board to meet in the future?
Are these supervisors?
yeah.
Or these,
Directors.
I know they're directors, but they're not, their title's not supervisor, and there are people who have titles as supervisors. So I don't know personally what the distinction is.
And
Just
I agree
wondering.
with you, and I don't know it either. If anything, I would think I'd be more interested in having directors presented to us than department supervisors, but we have a practice where department supervisors are presented to us before we're asked to vote.
Right.
I guess it is perhaps a practice.
Okay.
And I'm not saying stop it and pull it now, but I think we need to discuss that issue
We need to
before we
look at
get
the-
to hire someone again.
We need to look at the policy on that and see what we have in there. Any other comments at this time?
Who was on the committee that spoke to the individuals?
Who, what, board members?
Yeah.
Jerry, you were,
I'm the chair of the committee, I was
Okay.
there.
The personnel is-
Sandy was there,
Sandy.
Laura was there, I don't think Bernie.
No, I wasn't there.
Bernie didn't make it, he's on the committee.
So three of the board members.
Three. And, you know, I think in, you know, without trying to get this thing too embroiled in it, we kind of hear what you're saying and we understand that. And I think, you know, Fran went out and found somebody. The Personnel Committee has worked very hard to try to find anybody that would really be somewhat qualified, and she's refused to bring anybody to us. She's brought people in for interviews and discussions, and not once has she felt that she could bring anybody forward. So to her credit, she found somebody after waiting and searching long and hard, and then as a committee, we felt that we also, rather than having her just recommend it, at least speak to the person, have a chance to interview with her, find out whether we were comfortable with her, ask her the questions that we knew the board would ask, and use that as a way of trying to get more information for the board, as the arm of the board. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I really believe if there was any doubt in any of our minds, we would not be sitting here with these individuals on the agenda.
I'm not questioning the person. I read the resume. I'm very impressed. And I'm not arguing with any of that. It was the process and the process going forward.
let's separate from a voting standpoint, I'm serious about it, let's separate the process, which is maybe an issue, from the hiring of these people, of this person. I mean, we shouldn't vote no on something like this because of the process unless we feel that the person coming forward is fundamentally, doesn't meet our needs.
Fine.
And the process, if we don't like the process, I hear what you're saying, we'll fix the process. And the next time, and I think this is the point that Pete was making, let's get it right so we know who's supposed to be coming to the board in advance versus who shouldn't be, okay?
Again, I'm not questioning this person.
Okay, I just want to, so I'm just trying to
Fine.
separate the issues so we can make it a decision on this person for this position versus the process. You know, we're trying to, this is the first year that we've really tried to push as much as we have through the committee structure. And I'll grant you, we haven't gotten it right all the time, but we've gotten it right many of the times. And it's helped out a lot in terms of getting things kind of worked through initially, so. Maybe on this one, we need to learn a little bit more about how we're going to bring these candidates forward. Okay, do I have any other comments on, we have C5 that has been moved and seconded. And we have a lot of comments on our process at this point in time that we're going to have to take under advisement. Do I have any other questions at this time? Comments? Can I get a roll call vote on C5?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'd like to move C6 at this time.
I'll second that.
We have C6 moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or comments? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Pete.
Again, I was going to say I could make the comments now or when I vote. Now?
Yeah, do them now.
Just so it goes very simply, quickly. I unanimously opposed to this position. I've stated that time and time again. 40 years, 43 years now, of having observed this position in action in countless numbers of high schools throughout the state. It does not prove to be the most beneficial to the school to have this position as it is going to be voted on. Especially, well, yeah, I end of discussion.
Okay. Any other comments at this point in time? Hearing none. Can we get a roll call vote on C6?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
I vote no, but it no way reflects on the young man who's being hired, his qualifications or his ability to perform. I don't know him, but it's not the gentleman, it's not the person, it's the position, and I vote no.
All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mrs. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
And Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Could I ask the Personnel Committee to take a look at the policies that we have with regard to the hiring and how we're going about that? And let's talk about the process then, and discuss the process so we make sure we get as many people, or whoever needs to be involved in that discussion. Okay.
Mr. President, with respect to, I think you might want to look, we have a policy committee meeting tomorrow.
Maybe we
but I
can-
know the bylaws are something, I mean, I know there's various forms of board, how you function, committee structure versus, that, frankly, I don't know what our bylaws say about the committee structure right now without looking at them. I think that's something we should take a look at, because that does address issues like this, I believe.
Right.
Or it should.
Well, we're going to look at it. The policy committee should look at it, and personnel, because they're involved in that, can also take a look at that. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sequences make sense. The sequence of looking at it.
Yeah.
it may be a moot point.
Right. We'll take a look at it. We'll let you know.
We have a busy policy committee.
Yeah, I know. And I'm moving it back to 5. I see if we can start at 5:30. I got it. We'll see. With that, we're done with the Cs. We can move on to the Ds. Does anybody have any of the Ds, D1 through D10, that they want to have pulled for separate voting? Hearing none? I'm sorry.
I'd like to pull D10.
Okay.
I will then move
We can't answer it. We should.
D1 through D9.
We have a move on D1 through D9. Do I have a second?
Second?
Did you want D9 to go separate with D10, or before you do that? I mean, because they're kind of tied together.
Yeah, before we do that. Yeah,
Do
D9.
you want me to make it D8?
Go through D1 through D8, because D9 and D10 are kind of just connected, aren't they?
One's a donation or one's
Yeah.
spending, but they kind of...
D9 and D10
Cancel each other out.
are probably...
Okay, so I will amend my resolution to D1 through D8.
We have a motion on D1 through D8.
Hang on. Did you want to say something, Bernie?
Well, it was just a lack of specificity in the D10.
We'll come back to it.
That's all.
We'll get it. We have a motion on D1 through D8. Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Do you have any questions on D1 through D8?
So D3 is then, the intent is that all these things are going forward at this point, or is some of these dependent upon the actual budget passing, or?
No, they are contingent upon the budget passing.
So at this point, all we're doing is no commitment, but just getting the bids.
You authorizing the solicitation of the bids at this point in time.
And how long does it take to get the bids back? When are the deadlines for like all these bids to be done? Or back to you?
Usually by, I mean, I'd like to have them done by May, the end of May.
Including the fourth one?
The fourth one, a little bit before the end of May, but the end of May would be fine with that one as well.
Think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and hopefully they'll come in and where we can,
I hope. But
is
we
there
haven't-
any reason to get them sooner, or just do you need that?
Well, we'd like to start out that way. We'd like to start out getting it, like our second meeting in May is when we'd like to make the award. I don't think it's the end of May, but it's
I was just trying to
third week.
flow the time and see whether that allowed enough time to get, when school's over, to be starting it. You comfortable with that
Yeah,
schedule?
no, it should.
Question. Is there a certain amount of bids that you're required to get, or that you typically get, or?
Yeah, actually, you'd like to get more than one. I mean, the more you get, the better. You just need one good one. Actually, there's no set amount. You can get 50. You can get 2. Preferably, you always like more than one, because then at least you have a gauge as to if the price you're getting is a good price. When you get too many, it's a little worrisome, because you worry, that's where you get kind of caught with the low bid law, that you may get a vendor out there that's not, a contractor that's not, reputable. We try to work on that with our attorney and our architect when we prepare the bid specs, to make sure that they're tight enough that we can eliminate some of the folks that really shouldn't be doing this type of work. But no, there's really no set amount.
What is the bid number? What is the number required to have bids? Is there
Our bid threshold is $29,000.
What is the number that we operate by for quotes?
$4,350. So if it exceeds $4,350, we need at least 2 written quotes. I'd like to get 3. And if it exceeds $29,000, we have to do a formal bid process advertising.
$149.50.
$4,350.
$4,300. And it's quotes are not, or more than one quote is not required.
Under $4,350.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get them anyway, though, just to get a better price. I do that.
So then over 29,000, is there another set that you said you have to get written quotes? Is that?
No, well,
It's got to be bid.
yeah, it's
And
got to
then
be bid,
bid.
advertised in the newspaper, and you need various bid
Formal
documents.
specs. bid documents, all that.
It requires a formal advertisement and opens it up to basically anybody and anyone who's going to bid it, who's qualified. The quote process is a little, you can actually select 2 or 3 vendors and have them submit quotes to you. You don't have to open it up to the world.
We haven't
Pete, did you
seen
have
any of the bid specs on any of these yet, like the construction renovation for the classrooms. We really haven't. All we're saying is you can go out and get bids, but we don't really know what it is you're bidding on at this point.
No, you have to get specs to bid.
Well, I know, but we haven't approved any of the specs or the work,
You've
or the scope even for,
Well,
we put money in the budget to do
You've
certain
approved the
things.
architect to prepare the bid specs.
Conceptually.
You prepare for both the construction jobs that are on here. The board has approved Don Fieur's architectural firm to do the bid specs, to prepare them. We've had some discussions with the B&G committee on that. We haven't had a meeting in a little bit, but
Yeah, I understand, but I mean, but the office classroom project is a pretty large scope project.
yes.
And, you know, I'm just, before it goes out to bid, I'm wondering how, you know, will the B&G see it? Will the board see it? I mean, how will we say this is the right scope for the amount of work that we want to do, or the right way this thing should look, or, you know, I mean, it's a lot of money in a big size project. So I know we're saying go out and get bids, but we haven't really even seen what it is that we're bidding on at this point. We haven't even approved that yet.
That should be shared with the B&G committee.
And will that be shared with the subcommittee, the rest of the board?
Well, again, that's probably something that we need to discuss with the policy group.
I re-emphasize my point.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing with that, the committees are specifically made up of 4 individuals generally, because if you have more than 4, then you have a quorum, then you might have a problem. You have a sunshine law problem. What's that? If you have 6 members show up, then you have a quorum and you have a public meeting.
Yeah, this is actually a discussion that speaks to the governance of this board and the relationship of the committees to the board. And that's a separate discussion. We're here to talk about these bids and whether or not we want to go forward. And the question that is on the table, which is when does the board, or how is the board going to have input into this? And what your answer has been is it's going to be through the B&G committee at this point in time.
And possibly finance as well.
Probably finance.
Right.
Probably finance.
The one item on here, the floor, is going to be structured around the previous bid specs.
Right.
That's right.
We're locked into that legally, so that's not going to change. The other ones, though, we should have some involvement and input on.
Mm-hmm. Bernie.
If I could just go a little further on what Pete said. I think the question is, should the other board members learn about it just the day before the meeting or 3 days before the meeting, or is there a way of circulating some of this stuff in a draft form? So for your meeting tomorrow night, I think that's one of the questions.
We're examining bylaws tomorrow evening as well as policy.
Yeah.
Your bylaws right now set up a committee structure of the board.
But again, the question is, does it violate anything to circulate the materials for a draft if there's no comment before the meeting?
We're not saying it violates anything. The discussion is...
It doesn't really violate. To circulate material in advance would not be violating. Obviously, that's something that we encourage, which is to get the material out so everybody on the board would be aware of it. There should be no issues.
And you get extensive blue notes and other indications to share information.
Yeah. Pete?
But what we are talking about, we're tonight authorizing putting this project out to bid.
Right.
I'm on finance and I'm on B&G, and I agree with Lou with respect to the floor project. There are certain constrictions that make it sensible for us to make it as close as possible to what that original floor had been. However, for the construction project, we tonight as a board are approving putting out a bid spec that none of us have any idea what's in the project, other than conceptual. And whether we're operating under a committee structure or not, that's not the right way to do it.
Well, wait, we've discussed this at the finance committee meeting. It's in our budget.
We've discussed that we're converting.
Discussed the dollars.
We've discussed that we're converting some space into classrooms, but that's the extent, and the dollar estimate, but that's the extent of our discussion. There's been no discussion, that would allow anybody on this board to have a real sense of how extensive the construction is and what we're going to be doing.
Can we,
I mean, that's
you amend?
what brought this whole thing up is, I mean, before the thing goes out to bid, the board should approve the design. I mean, that to me makes the most sense, is, you know, let the B&G work on it, let the architect work on it, come back with a design. Once you're comfortable with the design, then you put it out, approve the bid. And this seemed to be putting the cart before the horse in terms of going out and approving a bid for something we haven't even approved the project design for.
we have, can we,
Well, I think you're approving this, the authorization to solicit the bid.
but that's the
But
question
that
right
includes,
there.
That's not what it
bid includes
says.
the specifications.
That's
is
not
the
what it
problem.
says.
This board is asking to be able to see the bid specifications and review them and comment on them in advance of them actually being issued as in
It's the
bid
board's
packet.
document.
I mean, B&G
In
hasn't even
soliciting.
seen a design yet for this floor space.
So the question is, can we amend this to require that the building and grounds and
Before we go
finance-
down the road of amending it, we've got a critical need for the floor. We definitely want to try and get the floor done. So I would suggest at a minimum that we go ahead and approve the bid specs on the floor. And then I'm going to turn to Tim and to Fran and say, about the construction on the other, give us an idea of how critical it is, or can we do what
Well,
seems
we
to be
can-
the
we
sense
can-
of some of us.
yeah. We can include that all in the same one, Pete, because all we're asking is that the board have a chance to review the bid specifications before they get issued, right?
I mean, you're talking about on
And
one
just
side.
let me finish. And the tile floor, we've already seen the bid specification for that, because they're already in there, so they've already met that obligation with regard to the specifications in the floor.
Right.
The question then is the first three, which has to do with then the office class
But not even the
project.
first
Yeah,
three,
if the
because
first one is what I
First
think,
one is $1 million project.
And the auditorium,
Yeah, but
sound
TV
system, and the TV
equipment
studio system.
Is, you know, you can't compare TV or studio equipment with $1 million construction
Right.
project, which once it's built, it's built.
But the board is asking for the right to see the specifications for those things before they actually get issued out for bid. That's what we're asking for.
I think Jerry's saying he's asking for it on the first item.
The first item is the one, to me, that's the most critical.
Well, you're asking it for the first one. Is it, I've heard other people,
Well, I mean, the
well, we were
auditorium
lumping
sound
them,
system
that's,
is,
you know, I think the first one is the one issue that everybody would like to see because of previous track records, not knowing what happened, and we find out later. It'd just be nice to lay it out for everybody ahead of time. I would feel comfortable too, that.
I would suggest that we're going to set up a process here, and you can do a dollar threshold, or you can just say a blanket statement, all bid specifications will be reviewed through the Buildings and Grounds Committee and the Finance Committee in advance of final bid specs going out.
And what we'll have to do at B&G is just present something to this board to make them aware of what the requests are, and what the layout is and all. We'll have to put
Do
something
these get-
together ahead of time so people know, not at the meeting night, but ahead of time.
Do the final bid specs before they go out get voted on by the full board?
No, generally not.
Generally not. Okay.
No, and in any of the bids, you really don't. I mean, that's something that I really haven't gotten too involved in the full board. I mean, the bid specs themselves are quite thick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of legal documentation that's required.
But what,
I would suggest
I think
that,
the first one, it comes down to
Concept and
architectural
scope.
design, a plan. The board should
Yeah.
approve the design before the bid goes out. I mean, that's the one, it's a big difference between buying, you know, TV studio audio equipment or something, and a floor plan, which is going to wind up costing $1 million when all is said and done.
Concept and scope.
Yeah, no, there's no disagreement, Jerry.
That's the distinction here.
Yeah, we're-
nobody's disagreeing with it.
Yeah,
So we're just trying to
That's
figure
the
out.
distinction I was trying to make.
yeah.
But I'm just going to suggest that, all I'm saying is that you have to have a criteria by which you're going to separate item 1 here from items 2, 3, and 4. Now, 4 is easy to separate because we already have the specs for that, and we can include the language there. Item 1, you can separate it on a dollar basis, but there may be people on this board who have an interest in seeing what's in items 2 and 3 also. So I would suggest that we not make a differentiation on a dollar basis. We just say that the board is requesting that we have concept and scope information excuse me, with regard to the bid specifications before they get issued for
Number 1.
for bid.
Because, I mean, they're all capital projects, so you can group them that way. Honestly, it's no issue to do all 3 sets to the board.
And they'll be reviewed through the buildings and grounds, they'll be reviewed through the finance, and then I would suggest, because of the thickness of these, it'll be made available to board members who can come in and look at it, because we could kill a few trees.
But I agree with Jerry that I think we lumped all those three together just because it was not the other one that we already have specs on. I'd be willing to go just to look at the first one.
Well, you can look at the first one. I'm suggesting that we not.
Yeah, but it'd be nice for all of us to know, on all of them,
Laura, you
what's happening.
No,
That's all.
I just wanted to request that, it's not just the first one that we're seeing the information on, but all the items.
So we're going to set up the process here. We're kind of getting things mixed up here, but we're going to set up a process that for this case, we're going to make sure that the B&G committee and the finance committee have rights to have access to these bid specs before they get approved, and we'll have a chance to review it. That information then, minutes of meetings and/or then the actual specs, and the actual specs will be made available to the rest of the board members to come in and take a look at them. Is that all right? Pete? Right.
On the process question, the specs are one thing, but Fran was just talking about the design and concept, and Tim bringing that. I feel that should come to the entire board, that B&G and finance should review it, but that every board member shouldn't have an obligation to go between meetings and go find out what it is, but that should come and be presented at a board meeting and give them time before that, because if I'm going to ask Pete Falzarano to vote on this is what we want to do in this, he shouldn't just have to rely on my say-so that this is the right. Similarly, Sandy, Laura, everybody should be able to look at it and say it makes sense. And I think with the distinction that Fran just gave us, the design and concept, I think that's a way we can do that as a process.
So, agree with that. We'll bring design and concept information to the full board for review and approval. We'll review specs through the B&G and the finance committee, and then make available specs to the full board, whoever may want to, in between the meetings. Does that make kind of?
Well, the only thing is, how would you do it at a board meeting? How do you want to do that? You say to make it
Operationalizing that.
Well, which part of it?
Written presentation stuff?
Design and concept, the presentation.
I think it could be as simple as you, Tim, giving us a presentation. Met with Don Fiore, this is what he's proposing, a handout to us to see it at a board meeting, so questions can be raised.
Luke could do that.
Luke could do that.
That's what I was thinking.
Basic information.
Part of his committee report.
Just a second, one conversation, please. Tim, go ahead.
The way Paul, you suggested it, I almost got the impression you want a full-blown presentation.
No, it's something that,
From the board.
I think what the board is asking for is, they want to know what the design, and the full board wants to know the design and the concept of what we're going to then be building full detailed specification for. And then the full specifications are going to be reviewed through the buildings and grounds and the finance committee. And then the specs, as they get written, would then be made available to the board if they want to review those in advance of the actual meeting where they would be voted on.
Okay.
Okay, so operationally, I'm not talking about a 30-minute PowerPoint slide presentation with regard to design and concept, but something that tells the board and explains to them what is it that each of these items is, and what is the design that we're trying to work on, and what are the concepts that we're actually trying to build for. So, for instance, on the first one, what is it, what rooms, how many classrooms are we going to get out of it, what are we doing with the other spaces that are involved in that, okay? Same thing then, same level of detail almost with the sound system and then the TV studio.
Okay.
I think for some of those, like I think probably the TV studio equipment is going to be pretty turnkey. I don't know about the sound system right now. Okay? And the tile floor, we already know. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I'd like to see Don come to the meeting and talk about the layout and design and concept of that, so if there's any questions, we can go over it with him. So we can get it all said and done in one meeting.
So maybe a presentation by Don then at the meeting.
And I think the reason for doing that is that if you just circulate it outside the meeting and people start talking about it, before the meeting, then you kind of violate the idea of talking about these things in an open public meeting. So I think it should be a presentation with the ability for all of us to ask questions and comment.
And Jerry, I'll only suggest, and I don't know if this works out time-wise, it may be for something like this, that if we have time to do it, we just want to have a presentation that Lou or Tim makes, And then when we get to a board meeting, if there are questions that can't be answered there, then we ask our architect to come.
That's reasonable. That's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Well, it depends on what kind of timeline you are to get
Yes,
started.
Can we,
We want to start this summer.
we have a rather complicated D3 modification to be made here. Does anybody want to take a shot at the language that would encapsulate the concepts
Yes,
which are...
I can do it. Resolved that the Board of Ed authorizes the school, keep the whole first paragraph, cross off the next 3 lines.
Which next 3
Which
lines?
3 lines?
Office, classroom, auditorium, sound system.
Why are you pulling those separately?
No, you just don't have,
Leave 'em-
you don't have to authorize the bids now, do you?
We don't have to authorize the bids now.
Well, I think you should. Honestly, I think for the
Oh, I see what you're saying.
you want to do an authorization. You don't even want to authorize those 3 bids at this point in time. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I think what you're going to do is a separate resolution for those that say we're going to authorize the design and concept of, the development of design and concept information.
In order to
and,
solicit bids.
and develop the specifications for the bid specs. That's what we're going to create as a separate resolution for those 3.
Does the board want to remove all 3? I don't understand the difference between the 2. You want to remove all 3 of those right now, and you want to wait till the presentation to authorize the bids.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's what they're saying, yeah.
Well, then probably Peter's wording is correct then. Just remove the 3
We're going to
items.
move the 3, and we're going to have a separate resolution that's going to authorize the development of the design and concept, and then the development of the detailed bid specifications. That's what we're separating out that as a phase from then the actual bid specs. So we're separating the development of the upfront engineering work that's going to give us the design and the concept, and then the detailed specs. We're separating that from then the actual authorization. to go
Tim,
ahead
do
and
we
bid it.
need a resolution
No.
for those other 3? Okay.
You really don't.
So
I
just
don't
pull it.
know.
You're right.
Yeah.
That removed the need for it.
So we're going to just delete the first 3 items and just do the retile of the lobby floor. So we have a move and seconded on D3. On D3, we're pulling the first 3 items. We're leaving on there the retile of the lobby floor for construction. Does everybody, who moved this?
I agree.
Who seconded it?
Okay.
Okay, all right with that?
You know, I just wanted to go back to discussion for a moment.
We're still in discussion.
Okay. I think the intent is to try to move forward on this and not slow down the process, but to keep certainly the committees in the loop as to what's happening. Is there a way that we can do that?
It doesn't seem
Yeah,
like
can I
they
just-
should.
Can I just ask a question for clarification on that, though? Because the board has already approved these projects
In the budget process.
next year.
Right.
Why did you have to really come forward and authorize us to approve you going out for bids on it?
Any bid. Any bid the board has to approve.
Part of the regulation.
It's
But
part
I mean,
of
if
the
you brought it to
purchasing.
finance committee and, you talked about it there,
We
finance.
have.
No, I need a public board approval of you have to
It's a
publicly
two-step
approve
process.
the solicitation of the bids. I have to do that.
What kind of delay does this put on it?
It would put us into
Well,
July, which would be a problem.
Can we just,
Yeah,
before we...
It's going to delay it a month.
Before we go on, we're now trying to re-engineer a process, okay, which I'm not saying it's the right one that we have now, but we're trying to redesign a process. Let's take that work offline. We'll talk about that separately outside of this meeting to figure out what's the best way to meet the board's intent, which was we want to have an opportunity to look at design and concept, and we want to have an opportunity to get input or at least a chance to review the detailed specs before we go out for bid. I'm not sure it's going to be how long that's going to take, but I don't think anybody here wants to see us get delayed in our projects as we move forward either. I mean, I think there's a need for moving forward. There's also a need to have proper oversight by the board. Let's see if we can balance that out. But we can't engineer it here, I guarantee it. Okay, Bernie?
On the renovation project, is everything already done, all the design, everything, is that already in somebody's binder?
We have a concept, we basically have a basic concept which was used to discuss for the budget purposes in terms of budget planning. If you recall, it was a 2-phase process. I think it was the business office and superintendent's office would be the first phase in order to be able to relocate people who are now in various places throughout the building to one centralized location. that we did have quite a bit of discussion about, both in B&G and in finance. And that's where we came up with the breakdown for what we would be putting in this year's budget under the capital projects and lease purchase, which is why then we felt fairly comfortable with going out for bid. I can certainly appreciate that everyone has not seen the, it's a very generic, basic, it's not anything unusual or special. It's just basically converting some existing offices into office space for the business office, and then the existing office that the superintendent currently occupies, which would be then shared by the superintendent and the director of curriculum and instruction and their support staff. So it's a matter of just carving up those spaces with some sheetrock, some walls, some insulation, and some heating, which would be nice.
And vacating the former.
And vacating the space where the currently the the human resources manager and the payroll manager are currently located, those office spaces, so that whole space can be cleared out and then converted into classroom spaces in phase 2. So, we have had quite a bit of discussion about this, but, again, if the board does not feel comfortable moving forward in that generic sense, I think it will delay us, and that will be a problem.
But let me follow up on that. You're at the concept stage. You don't have all the final drawings or anything done yet. How long would it take you to get to that point? Would it be done before our next meeting?
No, I could tell you, he's pretty far in.
He's pretty far into it. We do.
He's got the layouts of the
set
rooms.
up, and it's very simple. It's not anything complicated.
Well, why don't we bring those layouts to the B&G committee and to the finance committee, and then we can circulate to the full board also. So, I mean, let's start, what we're looking.
We have shown some concept boards out to the
That was
B&G.
a while ago.
But let's start the educational process so that everybody here.
But I think everybody should know, because when people ask, they can give them an answer. Oh, yeah, it's going to look like this. It's going to do, so that everybody can answer the same way. And that's what we keep talking about, community relations, is that everybody's talking from the same sheet of paper. So.
And to me, it's $1 million. The more eyes that look at it, the more chances there are of finding something.
It's fair enough, Jerry.
Before.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I think it's fair enough. So I think we have D3 has been modified. We've pulled items, the first 3 items that were on the list.
To what?
To what?
It's just now the same wording, except there's one item, which is the retile of the lobby floor, dash construction. Okay?
A bid.
It's one bid.
Well, the way you were talking about it, I thought you were going to leave the 3 items in.
Well, we were, but I'm convinced now that you said we don't really need, you don't really need to do the, you don't really need to have board approval to do the initial concept and design work for the other 3.
Yeah, well, right, you've already done that. The board has already approved.
We've already approved that, right?
You do that. At one point in time, you have to authorize me as the purchasing agent to go out to bid.
To go out to bid, that's the next step on this.
And the next board meeting would be April 30th. That's what the delay that Dr. Stroms was talking about.
Right.
So next board meeting, so if you were to approve that at that point in time, that just delays it
It's 2 weeks.
a month.
So we've delayed things by
Well, at the end of
3
the month.
weeks. 3
Because
weeks.
it's May 1 is our meeting.
Guaranteed to be delayed 3 weeks. I think
That's
the
okay.
sense I have from the board is that it's important, the board needs to become more knowledgeable of these things earlier on.
Okay.
Laura?
Well, what I was going to suggest is maybe we can have our board input at that point in time, at the next board meeting, in terms of how the bids are structured and where where that's going, so that we have the facts as to the projects as they're unfolding. No contracts are awarded at that point.
No, this is, we're not talking
obviously.
about contracts.
But
We're
at
just
least
talking
we
about
get
bids.
things rolling, and Tim's out, able to solicit bids. Does that solve
We're
our?
just talking about bids.
The best we could do is to authorize the issuance of bids or soliciting bids in the April 30th or May 1st meeting, whenever we have that meeting. That's the best that we could do.
Does this board still feel uncomfortable to authorize bids tonight on the auditorium sound system and on the TV studio equipment? It seems to me all I'm hearing about the discomforts in the first item of the renovation.
I think Laura asked for that all the other items also be considered. So with that, I think, so we've got item 1, we've got item 4, retile lobby floor construction in D3 now. Can I get an agreement that on D3 to be just that one item? Peter, that's what you,
Yes.
you all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So D3 now, strike the first three items. We are now just looking at retail floor. I guarantee it, this whole issue with regard to governance and the board and committee and how we're going to do these things coming forward is going to be discussed in a lot of detail. All right. Can I get a vote? Can I have any, do I have any other comments on D1 through D8? Can I get a roll call vote on it?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Ms. Beckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Could I now move D9 and D10?
Second.
Can I get discussion on D9 and D10?
I'd like to ask a question. Just, it says it's a maximum of 6,000. What is the actual schedule for the day, and what would make it either less, bring it to a smaller number, or bring it up to the 6,000?
I know it's 5,000, and there were some travel costs. I think this gentleman is from out of state.
Is it an all-day presentation in the
All
theater?
day and evening, both. There'll be daytime presentations for the students, and then in the evening, there'll be a general presentation for the parents, community, students that did not see him during the day. So it is a very full agenda. And we're very grateful to the Wymans once again for stepping up and providing the resources for us to be able to do this.
I'll ask Sandy's question. Do we send a letter?
Of course we will. Okay. Of course.
Okay.
We have in the past, and I will again.
Any other questions on D9 and D10? So it sounds like the most of the cost is, Bernie, is the talks, and there's some travel costs that the estimate of exactly what that is isn't certain. I think that's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Can I get a roll call vote on D9 and D10?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Beckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay, with that, we can move on to other business. Does anybody else have any other business they want to bring up? Bernie?
Just want to mention that last week I actually took a look at all the videos of the meetings on the hard drive that I gave the board a few weeks ago, and it worked quite well. And I think I also know that they're working to try to get our videos presented on the internet by using a Google service. So my hope is that in the next few weeks that Google will solve a technical problem, and it will avoid people having to come into the building to look at a video. It'll be right on the web. So I think that's great progress, and I just wanted to acknowledge our tech staff for doing that.
Laura?
Okay, I just wanted to
Thank you.
mention.
I'm sorry, thank you. Laura?
I just want to mention that the parent and band parent teacher student talent show was Saturday night, and it was a wonderful event. It's great to have parents, teachers, and students on stage, throughout the evening, and the level of talent was fantastic. Also, sorry, I'm blanking. So this is what I want to say, that they said that there were 42 performers on the stage over the course of the evening. So I just wanted to thank all the performers who came out and supported the school.
Okay, thank you. Any other business at this time?
You talked about the CSA, because I wasn't here in the beginning, the
No.
evaluation process, so we're going to do that.
We're going to do that in executive session only. I mentioned that we would be doing it. And we also talked about agenda, schedule and things like that for the meetings. You can view it on the tape later. Okay, any other questions? Any other business? With that, we can open up the meeting for a second opportunity for public comment. You can comment on non-agenda items. Seeing no comments, we'll close the opportunity for public comment for the second time. We'll move into executive session for the purposes of discussing confidential matters and personnel matters that are governed by attorney-client privilege. It's expected that we're going to divide the executive session into two separate sessions. We will go into executive session. We will have a discussion. We will have to come out of executive session, and we will then have an opportunity to vote. And then we'll go back into executive session, and we do it the second time. Mr. Mr. Size and Dr. Stromsen won't join us in the second executive session because we will be going through our CSA evaluation at that point in time, okay?
We'll move to go into executive session for those purposes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Do you want that action may be taken?
I did say action would be taken. Didn't I say action would be taken?
Yes, you did.
You
He did say action will be
Okay.
taken.
Just want to make sure. I thought
I
I
heard,
said.
he said action will be taken.
Yeah. Okay, we're in executive session.